Hello and welcome to another week of shows here on Stand Up. It's Monday, so I hope to see you at tonight's happy hour hangout at 8 p.m. If you're a subscriber, you should have a link for it. Thank you very much for your support, for being here. I hope you had a good weekend. I have a great guest joining me today. Joy Reid is here. Isn't that fantastic? We sat down late last week. You might have seen us live on YouTube, but I'm very happy to share that interview with you. That is coming up at about 30 minutes into today's show. If you want to jump ahead, but I've got your headlines and a great clip show coming up in a moment. I had a busy but great weekend. Friday night, I was on CNN fighting with some fascists, and Saturday night, I went to Washington, D.C. and watched the fascists as I saw the military strolling around, the United States Army strolling around Washington, D.C. was sad, heartbreaking, frustrating, angering, scary, all of the emotions around that, of course. But we had a wonderful time on Saturday night at Glenn Kirshner's amazing Patreon subscriber event where the great Bill Boyle joined me. It was a lot of fun to see Bill. I went out with our friends Anita and Brian from the stand-up community who will be joining us at Farm Jam on September 5th through 7th. Can't wait to see you guys there. Thanks for the drinks. Also, at Glenn Kirshner's event, Jim Acosta spoke, which was really interesting to hear and talk and spend some time with Jim. He's a really good guy. We heard from Frank Fagluzzi and Dave Ehrenberg and Kim Whaley and a whole bunch of other, as Glenn calls us, justice warriors, not to mention the four Capitol police officers, DC police officers, Michael Fanone, Aquilino Ganell, Harry Dunn, and Danny Hodges were all there, and it was great to see all of those guys who I've become friends with as well. And then yesterday morning, I took a run around the mall in D.C., and then I capped it all off by headed over to Arlington. I can't leave D.C. now without going to Arlington National Cemetery. I went there last year for the first time, well, in a long time, and went back to visit my friend Kate Wyatt's husband, Derek Wyatt. You've heard Kate here on the show. You've heard me talk about them a lot, but it's kind of a good way to reset and to get centered and to remind myself of why I do a lot of the things I do and have done. And most importantly, it means something to Kate. So, you know, I like to do that. I'm not a cemetery person, but Arlington Cemetery is different. And if you've never been there, I highly encourage you, if you're in DC, to make sure that you stop there at least once in your life. All right. Well, I hope you had a good weekend, and I'm happy to have you here. And now I've got your headlines and clips from the weekend. The latest big news is that our tiny little mad king of a leader is going to send troops into Chicago. City and state leaders pilloried the Trump administration for planning to home in on Chicago, the third most populous city in the United States. It's the next target for military deployment in the name of, quote, addressing crime, immigration, and homelessness. They call the idea unlawful and unnecessary. Chicago will not waver, said the mayor and the governor, responding to reports the Pentagon plans a military deployment in Chicago. No official request has been made to Illinois. The governor there strongly rejecting the idea, accused our president of politicizing the military and vowing to protect Illinois' sovereignty and its residents. He went on to say that he had not requested any federal intervention, but that is going to continue to be a huge story. We'll see if he follows through with it or not. Here's an enraging story. I'll just get it out of the way. But Trump halted work on a nearly complete New England offshore wind project. Can you believe it? It's the Revolution Wind Project, which began there in 2023. It was expected to be fully operational next year, but now not so much, because the Trump administration halted construction on the nearly complete offshore wind project near Rhode Island as they continue to attack the battered U.S. offshore wind industry that scientists say is crucial to the urgent fight against climate change. The Danish wind developer Ørsted said that Revolution Wind Project is about 80% complete, with 45 out of its 65 turbines already installed. Despite that progress and the fact that the project had cleared years of federal and state reviews, the Bureau of Ocean Energy and Management issued the order Friday saying the federal government needs to review the project and, quote, address concerns related to the protection of the national security interests of the United States. Of course, they did not specify what the national security interests are, but this is terrible. And I don't know what to say about that, how bad it is. And hopefully somehow that project will get online. But what an unbelievable waste of money. And people should be outraged and in the streets, again, for that, the streets of Providence, Rhode Island, or anywhere, just protesting that. Just what a complete waste. Speaking of in the streets, I saw a lot of Army National Guard troops in Washington, D.C., and now the news is that they're going to start carrying weapons. I didn't see any weapons when I was there yesterday, but apparently they started carrying sidearms yesterday. I didn't see it, any of them. I didn't look that closely at their weapons. I just couldn't stop staring at the fact that they were wearing uniforms on the streets of an American city for no reason at all, just saying hello and hi and being polite. They all look like they're about, 15 years old, by the way. And now they're touting a drop in crime in D.C., but they were only there for a week, so it makes no sense, and it's a complete hogwash. But you know what else they're reporting in D.C.? A huge loss of business, especially for restaurants. Restaurant owners in Washington say that Trump's deployment of National Guards has been terrible for business. There's a whole article about it in the New York Times. Also, developments that might have gone undercovered. The purge after the pardons, it's called. The Justice Department has fired or demoted more than 24 prosecutors who were assigned to hold the January 6th Capitol rioters accountable. So they got pardons, and those who prosecuted them were fired. Yeah, be outraged. That should fuel it. Also, the Pentagon fired the head of the Defense Intelligence Agency and others weeks after the agency contradicted Trump's assessment of the U.S. attack on Iran. So don't question, dear leader, or you will find yourself without a job potentially or demoted, which is so unbelievably dangerous that you don't have military leaders willing to speak truth to power and tell the truth to the power. A top Democrat on the House Investigative Committee said that most of the documents that the Justice Department gave Congress on Friday in the Jeffrey Epstein case, they were already public. Nothing new, apparently. No surprise there. But we did hear from Ghislaine Maxwell, as you know, on Friday. I'm sure you probably heard about that. And she said Trump was she never saw anything inappropriate. But asking Ghislaine Maxwell what's appropriate, I think, might be your first mistake, because they'd be like asking, I don't know, any other pedophile if they saw anything inappropriate. Hey, I know that you've been convicted of sex crimes against children. What do you think's appropriate? That doesn't seem like a good question to ask that person. We also heard from the Fed chair on Friday. He offered the strongest signal that the central bank is preparing to cut interest rates. Stocks jumped after those remarks. Stock market, of course, is not a representation of the economy, hardly any at all. Kilmar Armando Abrego Garcia, the Maryland man who was wrongly deported to El Salvador and then returned, was released from jail in Tennessee, though he and his lawyers are expecting ICE to pick him back up. So the saga of that case continues. In California, wine country wildfires are nearing 7,000 acres. Mandatory evacuations have been ordered. A fast-spreading wildfire called the Picket Fire in Northern California's Napa County has burned some 6,800 acres since it broke out on Thursday. As of midnight last night, the fire was 11% contained. I saw this from the Associated Press. Expect health insurance prices to rise next year, according to health insurance brokers and experts. So I just wanted to mention that one here at the end. All right. I think that's all I've gathered for your headlines today here on a Monday. I'm sure I missed plenty. Send me your ideas, the stories that I'm missing. standupwithpete@gmail.com is my email address. And now let's do the clips. Here's the clips I've got for you for today's clip show. I wanted to include one moment from my appearance on CNN on Friday night. There was a panel of 5 people, and there's this guy, Ben Ferguson, who I've known for a long time. I've been on CNN with him several times in the years past. There's no love lost there. We were polite enough to each other beforehand. And then, though, during the whole time we were there, the whole time we were on air, this guy just wouldn't shut the fuck up. It was unbelievable how much he was talking. And it was also unwatchable as a result of how much he was talking. But this is the one punch that I think I got in. I was really pretty worked up, and this went kind of viral. So I thought it was fun. But also I meant every word of it, as inspired by one of my old mentors, Jon Stewart. Here it is.
They're angry that they decide to sit down with someone who, by the way, is alive because the other person, let me finish. The other person's dead. Epstein's dead. You have one person who's heavily involved in this, and if she did tell you something that led to someone getting charged or a conviction or someone that trafficked a young girl, that's not a bad thing.
You live at the top of bullshit mountain. I am so sorry.
I'm sorry. I said we're victims of crimes that were abused as children
you can't
sexually.
Sit here. You can't
that's not here.
You become the party of protecting pedophiles.
Hold on a second.
That's what you're doing.
What the hell is wrong with you? I just said I want to put people in jail.
All right, so that's kind of how it sounded like most of the time. My friend Mark Lipsky was watching. He texted me while I was on set. Unwatchable. I switched off tonight's Abby Phillip panel to listen to 3 separate Yoko Ono audio tracks at the same time. It was quieter, but you look good. That was really funny, Mark. Thank you. Also, I heard from the great Sam Cedar last night, who texted me and said, hey, taking a break from my vacation to compliment you on your bullshit mountain work. Love Sam. He's one of my favorites, so that was validating. The rest of it was pretty bad. All right, so I wanted to share that with you. What else do I have for you more importantly? Oh, this is Congressman Jim Jordan on Fox News yesterday, basically endorsing Ghislaine Maxwell. But Jim Jordan, of course, protected a coach who apparently assaulted, according to a number of witnesses, assaulted lots and lots of wrestlers while he was at Penn State. So it's not surprising that Jim Jordan would support another pedophile.
We'll see. What I know is they didn't release parts of the transcript. They released the whole transcript. And so you can go through the whole thing. And, of course, this confirms what we all knew. If the Democrats, if President Trump had done something wrong, you don't think the Democrats would have released that? I mean, it was their Justice Department who handled all this. You don't think the Garland Justice Department and the Chris Wray FBI would have released information? We knew President Trump didn't do anything wrong here. He said that repeatedly. This transcript is the whole transcript, and it confirms that. So I think there's nothing there. It seems based on what we got from the interview of Miss Maxwell.
Yeah, Ms. Maxwell. She seems really credible. What a piece of shit that guy is. When I was on CNN, the one thing I also wanted to do was make sure that we heard from Jeffrey Epstein and Ghislaine Maxwell's victims as much as possible. So I read quotes when I had the opportunity. But here on the show, I also want to play quotes whenever I see them and have the opportunity. Here is one of Epstein and Ghislaine Maxwell's victims. Is another victim has a new book coming out after she died. Virginia Giuffre's book is now coming out. But here is Sarah, I think her name is pronounced Ransom, talking to reporters about them, and it's very visceral.
I have spent the last 17 years in my own prison for what she, Jeffrey, and all the co-conspirators did to me. I was raped repeatedly. I was raped 3 times a day sometimes. And I was not the only girl on that island. There was a constant stream of girls being raped over and over and over again. And yes, Ghislaine must die in prison because I've been in hell and back for the last 17 years.
So we should be hearing from the victims whenever possible. And that's why I wanted to play that. All right. I love Mark Maron. And Mark has been making the rounds, talking about all kinds of things, because he is quitting his podcast, which he started like 14 years ago. I've known Mark for a long time, and I've been playing a lot of clips from his stand-up specials and from these interviews. And I don't know, I thought this was pretty interesting when he was asked about Bill Maher. This is how he described his relationship and what he thought about his work.
What do you think about Bill Maher?
I can't do it. I always had a problem with his tone. I think I did politically correct years ago.
Yeah, I'm sure you did.
A couple of times maybe. Yeah. And I think I did real time maybe once or twice. Mm-hmm. But
that's when you were dating Ann Coulter at the time.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, that was a dark time. Mm-hmm. I tried to help her. Like, I feel with Bill that there is this, and it happens with some of the other boomers, there's this desperate chasing of relevance that, changes someone's mind in terms of how they approach what they do, and also kind of makes the whole undertaking feel desperate. And, outside of, his ideas about primarily, I think, wokeness, I don't know. It's just not for me. I know his joke he's got good joke writers who know how to write for his tone. But I can't see past, the desperation and what he's willing to do to stay in the conversation.
Yes, I thought that was a perfectly apt and appropriate description of what Maher has been trying to do for a long time. Unlike Mark Maron, who is open-minded and has changed with the times and has listened to young people, listened to LGBTQ people, listened to people of color his entire career, and platform them as well. Love Mark, and can't wait to see what he and my friend Brendan McDonald do next, if anything together or apart. And hopefully I'll be talking to both of them soon. All right, now let's get to Adam Schiff. Adam Schiff was on Meet the Press yesterday, and I thought he's being investigated now by the administration as well. I thought this is a really interesting kind of litany list of things that the administration is doing. Here is Senator Adam Schiff of California on Meet the Press.
Advisor and Ambassador John Bolton's home and office. I did have the opportunity to ask the vice president about this. He rejects the idea that this is political retribution. Do you believe that people need to let this investigation play out and not get ahead of it at this point?
I think this is clearly retribution. I mean, the idea that they just picked John Bolton, a prominent critic of the president, at random. What the president is trying to do here is very systemic and systematic, and that is anyone who stands up to the president, anyone who criticizes the president, anyone who says anything adverse to the president's interests gets the full weight of the federal government brought down on them. So if you're John Bolton, you get your home seized. If you're on the Federal Reserve and you won't lower interest rates, you get threatened with prosecution or with firing. If you're a general, like the head of the Defense Intelligence Agency, and you issue a report, or the agency does, casting doubt on the success of U.S. military strikes on Iranian nuclear facilities, you get fired. If you are the head of the Bureau of Labor Statistics and you give a jobs report that the president doesn't like, you get fired. They're essentially going after any critic, any opposition, in an effort to intimidate them. That's what this is about. It's not about Bolton per se. It's about anyone else that, like Bolton, might stand up to the president.
Yeah. Good stuff, Senator Adam Schiff. I like that. Also, love Congressman Maxwell Frost. He's on the anti-oligarchy tour, and this almost, I think, 2-minute clip, I think, is a barn burner, and this guy's great. So here it is.
The fact of the matter is Donald Trump traveled this nation and lied to everyone. Told people the reason you can't pay your rent is because of that trans kid. The reason that you can't afford your health care, or the reason you're one hospital visit away from being on the streets, is because of that immigrant. But we have to tell the truth. See, these billionaires want us to look at each other. They want us to look at each other and blame our neighbors instead of looking up and blaming them. Instead of looking up and blaming them. It's not, you not being able to pay your rent doesn't have to do with trans people, but it has to do with private equity and billionaires that have bought up all the homes and apartments and have got the rent up too damn high. That the reason you can't afford your health care is because we have a broken health care system in this country. That isn't even a health care system, it's a sickness care system that makes money off when we get sick. And we're not interested in these solutions that are going to fix some things for some people if you fall in this bracket at this time. But we have to be for big solutions that say healthcare is a human right. Everybody in this country deserves to be healthy. That in the richest country on the face of the earth, no one should sleep on the streets. Everybody should have a roof over their head. And that this message, even though we're going to beat congressional Republicans and take the House back, when it comes down to the people, this message isn't about D versus R. This message is about the people versus the problem. The people versus the problem.
There you go. Inspiring. I liked it. I wanted to share it. There's a lot more. And kudos to him. Barn burner. Kudos. The hell's going on over here? Sorry. All right. Now, I saw this clip get dug up from a little over a year ago, and I thought, well, that seems appropriate. Here is former Vice President of the United States, candidate for president, Kamala Harris, telling us exactly how it was going to go if you elect Trump.
Donald Trump intends to use the United States military against American citizens who simply disagree with him. People he calls, quote, the enemy from within. America, this is not a candidate for president who is thinking about how to make your life better. This is someone who is unstable, obsessed with revenge, consumed with grievance, and out for unchecked power.
Yes, that's exactly how it's gone, right? Very prescient. We knew that. I mean, Hillary Clinton said all kinds of things during that campaign as well. That came true with Trump won. So I wanted to bring that one back. And now, finally for you, I've got a 6-minute clip. You're going to forget that you're listening to Stand Up with Pete Dominic. You're going to think that you're listening to Velshi on MSNBC, but it's worth it. This is his opening monologue, I think, from the Saturday morning episode. This is a kind of a must-watch. Elie Velshi does great work on his show and has great guests. He's an old good friend of mine that I should reach out to and get back on the show. But I wanted to play this 6-minute clip before you. I couldn't cut it up. I couldn't cut it out. I had to give you the whole thing. Here he is.
The collapse of democracy is a strange, almost surreal thing. It can be abstract and hard to recognize in the moment. At first, it just feels like politics. It's messy, it's noisy, it's frustrating, and sometimes a bit removed from one's day-to-day life. But then the guardrails that we've taken for granted begin to topple, one after another. A National Guard unit deployed to a city that never asked for it. Key parts of the nation's electoral process attacked as illegitimate. Rulings of federal judges shrugged off as optional. Neighbors disappeared into ICE vans. Critics and political opponents suddenly faced with criminal probes. The media behaving in ways designed not to trigger the ire of the ruling party. Each new abuse is justified as temporary, necessary, even an emergency. Until one day, it's not temporary at all. Until one day, the justifications stop altogether, because once power is absolute, it no longer feels the need to explain itself. At best, each assault may seem like an outlier until the day you wake up and realize the system itself has become unrecognizable. Well, that's where we are right now. It's not where we're headed. It's where we are. The tragedy of what's unfolding and the danger of what's ahead will be compounded if American citizens en masse, all of us, do not recognize this moment for what it is. Understandably, unless it touches you directly, it's easy to say sometimes to miss what's being taken away. We've been telling ourselves the courts will stop it. Congress will step in. Surely someone will draw the line. Yet one by one, those lines have already been crossed. Just look around. Last night, Illinois Governor J.B. Pritzker had to publicly rebuke President Trump's reported plan to send military troops into Illinois. Pritzker made clear Illinois has asked for no such help. Doesn't need that help. There's no emergency on the ground. His warning was blunt. Trump is, quote, attempting to manufacture a crisis, politicize Americans who serve in uniform, and continue abusing his power to distract from the pain he is causing working families, end quote. That is the governor of one of America's most populous states, sounding the alarm that the president of the United States is turning the nation's military into a domestic political weapon. And he's right. This is not about public safety. It's about flexing power, teaching dissenters and political opponents a lesson, normalizing the use of troops against Americans. In the nation's capital, hundreds of federal troops now patrol the streets alongside ICE and DEA and FBI agents, ticketing residents for minor offenses like broken taillights. Federal troops policing petty crime on America's main street. Think about that. Crime may be statistically down, but intimidation is way up. The police state is here, and that's the whole point. D.C. restaurants and bars report business down by 1/3. What Trump is doing is designed to bleed blue cities dry economically. Meanwhile, red state governors are planning on sending hundreds more Guard troops into the Capitol. Soldiers who, by the way, have no training in urban policing. Donald Trump is threatening to eliminate mail-in ballots and voting machines, the very infrastructure of elections, proudly parroting a line that Trump said Putin used with him that, quote, you can't have an honest election with mail-in voting, end quote. Can you imagine quoting Vladimir Putin about free and fair elections? This, by the way, all as Homeland Security announces plans to hold election security funds hostage unless states accept Trump's new rules. Secret voter databases, citizenship checks on poll workers, and untested systems that most states can't implement in time. What Republicans label election security is the classic playbook of the strongmen. Tilt the playing field toward yourself and lock yourself into power. Doesn't stop in Washington, D.C. Across the country, Republican-controlled legislatures are dismantling the last avenues of direct democracy, citizen ballot initiatives. In Missouri, voters raised the minimum wage. Lawmakers gutted it. In Arkansas and Florida, new laws make it harder for grassroots petitions even to reach the ballot. Across the country, roughly 40 bills to restrict civilian initiatives have passed at least one legislative chamber this year, according to a review by the Associated Press. Most of these measures, the AP notes, are coming from Republican lawmakers in states where citizen petitions have been used to put abortion rights, marijuana legalization, or other progressive initiatives on the ballot. The message is clear. Even if voters pass something that Republicans don't like, Republicans in power will just rewrite the rules. This is not democracy. That is something called competitive authoritarianism. Elections in name, one-party rule in practice. And here lies the tragedy. Ultimate power in this country still belongs to the people. But every time we accept or tolerate one more red line being crossed, we normalize the next. Each violation, larger than the last, makes what came before feel almost normal. America's democracy has withstood civil war, depressions, attacks by foreign enemies on its soil, but it has never faced an assault on this scale. An internal demolition carried out not by outsiders or even by well-armed rebels, but by the holder of the highest office in the land. The question is not whether Trump meant it when he promised retribution on the campaign trail. He clearly did. The question is whether we are willing to really see what it means that he's carrying it out, and that his playbook is being shaped by America's enemies, strongmen who preside over brutal, illiberal regimes. Thomas Jefferson saw this danger early in our history. In 1820, he wrote to Massachusetts politician W.C. Jarvis, rejecting the notion that courts should be the final arbiters of the Constitution. The true safeguard, Jefferson argued, rests with the people. Quote, I know no safe depository of the ultimate powers of society but the people themselves. And if we think them not enlightened enough to exercise their control with a wholesome discretion, the remedy is not to take it from them, but to inform their discretion by education.
Yeah, I'm back now. How was that? Worth it, right? I mean, so well written and delivered by Ali Velshi on MSNBC. There's some good stuff happening in corporate media, as easy and as rightfully as we should be critical of it. That guy continues to do good work. I know him well. He's a great guy with a lot of integrity and credibility, swimming in the corporate media for a long time, and I think doing a great job, as good as anybody at it right there. He is an underappreciated and undervalued American treasure in my mind. All right. Speaking of which, one of the greatest of all time. Let's end with one of the greatest ever, George Carlin bits.
But I'll tell you what they don't want. They don't want a population of citizens capable of critical thinking. They don't want well-informed, well-educated people capable of critical thinking. They're not interested in that. That doesn't help them. That's against their interest. That's right. They don't want people who are smart enough to sit around the kitchen table and figure out how badly they're getting fucked by a system that threw them overboard 30 fucking years ago. They don't want that. You know what they want? They want obedient workers. Obedient workers. People who are just smart enough to run the machines and do the paperwork and just dumb enough to passively accept all these increasingly shittier jobs with the lower pay, the longer hours, the reduced benefits, the end of overtime, and the vanishing pension that disappears the minute you go to collect it. And now they're coming for your Social Security money. They want your fucking retirement money. They want it back so they can give it to their criminal friends on Wall Street. And you know something? They'll get it. They'll get it all from you sooner or later because they own this fucking place. It's a big club, and you ain't in it. You and I are not in the big club.
All right. Love it. A classic. I wanted to share that. I saw that yesterday on social media, someone sharing it, and I was like, yeah, I gotta Got to play this one again. All right, that's all I've got for you. Clip show, your headlines. Hope you liked it. Now it's time to my conversation with Joy Reid. Joy is an old friend of mine. We go way, way back, and she is now doing her own thing in independent media after she was pushed out by MSNBC. We talk a little bit about that and a lot more. I think this is almost an hour-long conversation. Unfortunately, we had some tech issues. There was an internet connection issue on her end, and she cuts out several times, but I edited out those pauses because some of them were like 3 and 4 seconds. So hopefully it's not too distracting or annoying. It might be. Hopefully it's worth it because she said a lot of good things during this interview, which I thought was great, and I look forward to talking with her again. But I love talking to her. You should go subscribe to her Substack and her YouTube channel. Both of them are linked in the show notes. Support her in all of the ways because Joy really is always been one of the deepest, best thinkers in media and journalism, and she is passionate. She does not give up. She does not hold back. And this conversation or any other she has, I was really happy to have her back on the show for the first time in a long time. Let's do it right now with Joy Reid.
Yeah. Oh, my gosh. Look at who it is. Big star. Big celebrity. You're a celebrity, I feel like, now. You're supposed to be a journalist.
I feel famous right now.
You are famous everywhere you go. Can you walk down the street and not get recognized? I bet you do.
You know what's so interesting is I keep forgetting that that's why people walk up to me. So someone will go up to me, go, Joy, and I'll go, oh crap, I don't remember their name. They're like, no, we don't know each other. I love you from MSNBC, which doesn't exist anymore. But yeah,
what is the?
I get recognized a lot.
When I was on TV every night for a year at CNN, way back, I would get recognized. But the only people who would recognize me or at least say something almost exclusively, and I've heard this from other whites, was people of color. Black people will tell you and say hi. So does the opposite happen to you? Do the whites ever walk up to you and say, recognize you and that they're fans?
Yes, I get the whites, I get the blacks, I get the Latino, I get them all. I get the old, the young. It's interesting because the demographics. The last time that I was out, I had a different hat on. I didn't have this hat on. I had my FDT hat on. Let me show you it. Hold on.
I believe that
I have this hat.
I'm very offensive.
Yeah. So I had this on, and we walk in the airport. And a white guy is staring at me and staring at the hat. And I'm like, here we go. Now I'm about to have a negative interaction. And this white guy walks up to me and he says, hey. I said, yeah. He goes, I love that hat. That's exactly it. That's the energy. That's the energy. And he like lost it. He was so excited. Yeah. And then after at least like 3 other white men walked up to me and were like, that hat. That's it right there. That's it. So.
Oh, good. Oh, good. And how has it been since you died? When SiriusXM ended my contract, it was like I watched my funeral play out publicly. People were so unbelievably kind and generous to me. And that was, my profile so much lower than you're super famous and such a high profile ending. And kind of like people were really, we had a hangout, a live, hangout I hosted, and people were really emotional about it. So what was that like for you?
I think it was really, and people still come up to me and are still sad about it. I get 2 kinds of people who come up to me, and this is like the 2 kinds of folks, right? There are the white folks who are, and you have to remember, MSNBC was not just a channel for a lot of people. It was a lifeline in a world in which every other network was either on the one hand, on the other hand, or right wing. MSNBC was like a respite for people. People believed that every single person on MSNBC was their personal friend. We were their friend in their head. We were the good liberal friend who they could talk with. We were a diverse, interesting crew. We had all kinds of people. We had gay folks, straight folks, men, women, blacks, Latinos, Asians, very few of the Asian, the small, there are not that many Asian Americans that even get these opportunities. We had like multiple Asian Americans. We had all these different people. So we were relatable, right? We were like Sesame Street to people. So when you come up to me are by and large white Americans who come up to me and go, we miss you so much on MSNBC. We miss you so much. Oh my God, your voice is so missed. And then the black people who come up to me and go, I will never watch MSNBC again. We're done. Like the blacks are like, we're not watching no more. The white liberals are like, we're so sad.
You've talked about why it ended and your thoughts around it, and you were never told anything particularly is what I've read in preparation to talk to you. Last question about the ending, because I want to talk about your work now and the issues now. But how do you see that, and how do you see it in the larger media atmosphere? Because one could argue that you got out at a pretty good time. You ride that corporate media, you create this huge following from your weekend show to your weekday show to your primetime show, makes you a huge success. And then, like me, you take everybody with you. In your case, it's a hell of a lot more people, but it seems like you've leveraged it and done really well. But like, how have you seen the media landscape change, and how have you seen specifically them letting you go affect corporate media? I don't know. That was a lot of questions.
It was a lot of but it's a good question because, again, if MSNBC was like Sesame Street to people, right? I was like, if Grover went and got their own show, right? It's like, because what it turns out is, and I am a super Grover fan, or Elmo. People love Elmo. If Elmo went and did like a separate podcast, first of all, Elmo would be spicy because Elmo's a spicy little monster. If Elmo when Elmo would do like their own Elmo posts on X Twitter, when it was Twitter, people were all into it, right? Yeah. So it's like people are devoted to the channels at some level, but they're more devoted in many ways to the individual people. They become a fan of you as an individual. Look, we learned that at Fox. When Fox let Tucker go, people thought, oh, Tucker's done, and his funeral happened. And then it turned out that's not true. If you like Tucker Carlson, you're just going to follow him wherever he goes. And so people have followed, Joy Grover, to my other place because they're just like, I just like you. And even if I still kind of like that network, I don't necessarily need it to get what I want, because what I want is an individual person I trust to tell me the information that I need. And I think you're experiencing that too. Like, okay, I don't know, there's a lot of brand loyalty to Sirius XM, but there are a lot of hosts on there people like, and if they leave there, they're just going to follow them where they go.
For sure. And radio is, I did a daily radio show, and it was pretty intimate, and I shared a lot. So people certainly thought they were my friend. And guess what? They are. Like, so many of these people have become my friends. I'm trying to figure out who I identify with at Sesame Street. Who do you think? I know who it is. Who do you think, though, Joy?
If I had to pick a character for you, I would totally think that you're Fozzie Bear. Your personality and Fozzie's personality align.
All right. I was going to say Ernie. For some reason, I always felt as a child I identified with Ernie. I don't know why.
Are you incredibly not neat? Are you not neat? Do you keep a messy room?
I think it's because I have some gay tendencies.
They are Muppets, and according to Sesame Street, they have no sexuality or identity.
Oh, well, that's good. They shouldn't. All right.
But I do think they're a couple. If we're going to really keep it real, Ernie and Bert are 100%. They are booze. They live together, and I wish them well, and I think they are married. Even if they're not married, they living together, and I believe it.
I love what you're doing on your own, and I don't even need, like, you can explain if you want, what you're doing differently, if anything, and how you're changing. I mean, you're doing a daily show. I think you're every day you're live, right? I mean,
no, we're every other day. Yeah, it feels like every day because it's so much work, but it's like Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays we're live, and then we do a lot of like tape shows and like live specials. Like we did a live special on Thursday about this insane Texas redistricting. I, as far as topics, it's not really different, right? I would be doing a lot of these topics at MSNBC as well, or that's called, what is it called now? MS Love My, where I get my news now. I don't remember what it's called. Whatever the new name of it is. If it was still called MSNBC, but I am doing it without having to worry about getting called into HR because I did get called into HR because people would be upset if I was doing, too much Gaza, or, I got actually 3, white male colleagues who I still don't know who they are, who were upset, whose father founded white Christian nationalism. And, so it was, I don't have to worry about the stress of getting a text from management saying, that post you posted, that topic. I don't have to worry about that, which I actually really love.
Yeah, that freedom is exactly what I'm talking about, which is you're liberated to talk about, like, there is no HR. It's the free market of the internet, and people are going to pay you if they like you, and if they don't, they're just going to talk about you, but they can't tell you what not to do. I mean, I guess you can be deplatformed, but that would be shocking at this point in time, given that you can apparently say anything about anyone almost anywhere, and Laura Loomer's back everywhere, so I don't know.
It's not only back everywhere, but apparently, I was just doing a live with somebody and they asked me who are the most influential people who Trump listens to. And I said Putin, Bibi Netanyahu, and Laura Loomer.
I don't think that's that far off. And I don't know why you had to pronounce her name Lara, but
what's her name?
I think it's Laura. Is it Laura? Is it? I don't know.
Maybe I'm mixing her with Lara Trump. Am I merging the two into one person?
Maybe. I think you did. But Laura Loomer has more influence than his daughter-in-law, who has her own show on Fox, probably. I think you're right about that. So I saw your appearance with my very good friend Wajad Ali, which is getting a lot of attention because the two of you really unloaded on the whites. And I bet you wouldn't say those things to me, is what I'm here to confront you.
So here's the thing. I would say those things to you because you could take it because you're not mediocre. Like, I mean, the reality is it's one of those things where you can always tell if someone relates to the diss because they respond to the diss, right? It's like sexual predators should not be able to be in the White House. And someone goes, I don't understand why sexual predators can't be in the White House. I don't know why there's something wrong with it. Then you might be a sexual predator, right? Right? Because if you don't resemble the remark, then you shouldn't worry about it at all. Like if I say somebody is racist and a random white person gets really offended by it signals to me that they might be un poquito racist. So if you're upset that I talk about mediocre white men, and you're an outstanding white man who's accomplished and who actually is qualified for the job they're in and fully capable of doing the job, and you're competent and great at what you do, you're going to go, yeah. You're not going to get offended. Now, if you get offended and all of those on that other network that got mad, makes me question your competency and your ability to do things.
All really good points. But I think you maybe kind of misrepresent what the argument isn't. Like, can a sexual predator be in the White House? I think most of the time they'll say he's not a sexual predator. And that is also a signal to someone. Like, how can you, back in 2004 when I was on The Apprentice, they asked us if we wanted to meet Trump. And I said no in 2004 because I was a New Yorker and I knew he was a sexual predator. And I was a man who, I'm certainly not perfect, but I wasn't like, I was the friend zone guy, Joy. I think you know that. Safe, thought I was maybe gay, not gay, but still friend zoned, especially by women of color. Like women of color, when I would hit on them in college, explain this to me, little therapy, wouldn't take me seriously. I would say, no, I'm interested in you. I'm attracted to you. I would like to date you. And the woman, I'm thinking of the black woman, Erica, she said, oh, Petey. And once the Y is on the name, friend zone, right? That's it, right?
Yeah.
Anyway.
Yeah. I think you might be actually answering your own question, right? Because there's nothing a black woman loves more than a gay man. So if they thought you were gay, they were like, you're going to be my homie.
They didn't, though. They just didn't feel a way about me. But I've tried my entire life to prove to them how successful I am, that maybe there's still a chance. But Erica and I are Facebook friends, and she seems still uninterested, Joy. Moving on.
I got to tell you, if you ever do wind up, landing this plane, the makeover that the white man gets when they are dating a black woman is something to behold. There's a whole Instagram and TikTok genre about these white men that are married to black women and showing their makeovers, and it is spectacular.
Yeah,
so I think you should keep pursuing it.
I am. But did I say that with my mic on?
You did.
But anyway, enough about Chrissy Greer. I think that it wouldn't work for me because I refuse to moisturize. I refuse to assimilate. Like, I think my whiteness is something that I hold on to. It works for me. So I'm not sure. I'm not sure if it would. I still won't use lotion. I don't know.
Beard. You got to moisturize your beard.
No.
No. Oh.
I don't know what to tell you.
It's a different world. But see, this is the thing. This is the great reason that we have to like have these conversations, right? Because it's the weirdest thing to me in the world, honestly, that in America, in the United States, a country that was built as a giant slave plantation, and that white and black Americans don't know more about each other, you know what I mean? And don't have more connection. Because if you think about it, you know, in this country, you would think we'd have more proximity than we do, just based on the history. Because if you go to England, you know, there's not that many people of color, and they're only all in London. There's not that many. If you go out, you know, further out into the sticks, you really don't even see. Or if you're in Sweden, you know, they're like 10 black people are all from Kenya, you know? And so, but it seems like here, there's just this agony, this agonizing inability for whatever reason to just actually have regular conversations across racial lines. It doesn't make sense to me at all.
I think it does make sense to you, and I think you know exactly what it is. Let's get to it. But the big question I kind of wanted to ask you today is thinking about like where we're at in America right now and who we're talking to in our different media outlets and who we are in this outlet. You're a black woman saying things. I'm a white man saying things. Who am I talking to? What kind of influence do I have on them? And my question to you is like, I've always thought that when it comes to race and racism in America, white folks are the problem and white men hold most of the power. So it's incumbent on the whites, the white men, the straight white man, to solve the problem, to speak up when others aren't in the room, to do everything that MLK said, to do, as John Lewis said to me, putting me on the map, at least personally, get in good trouble. Like that's what we're supposed to do with whatever platform and opportunity that we have. I know that you believe that, but say more about what you think or what you hope or what you wish white folks, including especially white men, would do differently, not only in media, but in every walk of life. Talk to us.
And I the country and created the country and created it in a very specific way. You know, there was an opportunity for, you know, the European settlers after they'd killed off all the indigenous to just run their own farms, right? They're like, we've wiped out the indigenous with our germs and our guns, and now we've got all this empty land left. They could have just farmed it, and they could have just been out there, you know, like the Afrikaners, even though they didn't do the same thing, do it either. But they said, no, you know what? We can't work these fields. Let's, you know, we couldn't get the indigenous to do it because they didn't survive us, and so they brought black people here. You know, black people didn't say, hey, I'd like to go to the Americas and the Caribbean. They were happy where they were. They brought black people here on purpose, and they kept bringing them here and breeding them and doing weird things like saying black people are subhuman, and yet this black woman should nurse my child. So you're saying this subhuman person who you've likened to a cow, you wouldn't let a cow nurse. Subhuman person should put their breast in your child's mouth. And that you think this subhuman person should cook all your food and take care of your children, but they're not people. So like they created the contradictions. White men even created the idea of race. The only reason you're white and I'm black is way back in the, 1500s, some white guys said, let's invent this thing called white and black. They invented it. That didn't exist. People were European. They were, French. They were whatever tribe they were. Nobody was white and black. They created that too. I was reading this deep dive into the census in 1930 when they were trying to work out like what races people were. And they had all these categories, quadroon, octoroon, because, they had raped so many black women, they made light-skinned people. You know what I mean? So it's like they did it. And so the idea that anybody but white men can fix it is just not true. Some of the best minds have been thrown at it. W.E.B. Du Bois, Dr. King, Medgar Evers, Malcolm X, Sojourner Truth, Harriet Tubman. Some of the best minds have been thrown at this thing, and we can't fix it. There's just not enough of us. And so what has to happen at some point, but also an accountability towards something. It's not an accountability where we just want to be like, see, you're the bad people. No, it's a thing where you have to fix this because this is not a terrible idea as a country. A multiracial, multi-ethnic country is not a terrible idea. But you all have to accept that in order to have that, people are going to have to be equal to you. Women are going to have to be equal to you. People of color are going to have to, because it doesn't work otherwise, because we're not going to accept being sub-equal. So I just feel like I don't know how to make that happen. I don't know who can influence that to happen. Barack Obama tried, he can't, because I think it has to be an internal decision among white Americans to hold the past accountable. I mean, look, all those people did a whole insurrection against y'all, not you personally, but against the Union. And when it was over, y'all let them off the mat. Y'all said, go ahead. We'll name bases after you. We'll revere you. We'll let you act like you didn't do anything wrong. No accountability. So y'all have to take accountability. White men, white people, white women too, because they were complicit, have to take accountability for what this country has become.
But what have you seen in your life? Obviously, I think what you're saying is it's not like we're going to pass a policy, particularly, although, keeping voting accessible to all people would be a pretty good place to start. But my question to you is what have the good whites done in your life that you've seen? I mean, you went to Harvard. You're an academic. You worked before you got into media. Before you were at MSNBC, you worked in other media. Mostly been in media in your life. But I mean, what have you seen that works for us to do in terms of opportunities we create, behaviors that we try to role model, and also, I mean, maybe this, I don't know how to say it other than this, but protection. My understanding is that it wasn't enough for me to do this and that for that black family that was being discriminated against. I got yelled at by one of my civil rights mentors saying, "Are you bringing them food? Are you taking care of them?" And I was like, "No." And he's like, "Well, you should think about it." So there's a lot that we can do. What works? What have you seen in your life and career for the whites to actually do to be better and to try to make things a little bit easier and safer?
Right. And I mean, you can go all the way throughout history, which is again why I say Jefferson and bad person. There was a Hannibal Hamlin who was one of the most decent men in American history, very little well known, Abraham Lincoln's first vice president. He's the one whose idea it was to do the Emancipation Proclamation. He's the one who said you should let these black men fight. You should give them guns and let them fight in the Civil War. It took Lincoln a while because he was a little racist, but he finally got around to doing it and then dropped, Hannibal Hamlin got dropped and we ended up with Andrew Johnson, right? But, for every enslaver that was raping, their enslaved people, you had a John Brown who was willing to die for the freedom of black people. So it's like I think the first thing that white Americans should do is to read history without taking all of the villains personally. Stop identifying with the bad people. Find the good people that you identify with and use their example to uplift yourself. You don't have to just have black heroes. There are plenty of white male heroes that have actually done good work and have done good work toward equality. Find those people. I don't know why there are not more kids named William or Tecumseh or Sherman, because that badass wrecked the South, and I'm here for it, and people have forgotten him. So it's like, find your heroes where they actually are appropriate. And then the second piece, said, there are a lot of privileges, and I've seen people doing this, and I've actually seen this just even in the last month. You're seeing these cooks and dishwashers and delivery men who are brown and who are getting tackled to the street and attacked by the Trump Gestapo. And then what I've also seen in a lot of these videos are white people who know that they won't get beaten up or arrested, stepping up, being the ones to film it, saying, "Hey, do you have a warrant?" Opposing it. I've seen white women. I saw a white woman in flip-flops do it. This lady was in sandals and walking up behind these ICE people and daring them to touch her, because you're going to touch a white woman on camera. You're going to hit her, knock her down, or tase her. No, you're not, because she knows as a white woman that's not going to happen to her. So she's the one who stepped forward. And I think that's what we need to see more of. These ICE arrests are fascism 101. And that is a great opportunity for the people who are the least likely to get shot by cops and beaten up by cops to step forward, film it, document it, try to talk to that person and make sure it's seen. I think that is such an amazing and heroic thing that I'm seeing people do in real time.
We didn't think that we were going to have to be the ones we were waiting for, when we were growing up, reading about the civil rights movement and the heroes of the civil rights movement. I just never thought that we would be here, but it's really helpful to go back and read history. And specifically, I feel like a couple of quotes from Dr. King really like resonated with me to the point where, like, if I wasn't a certain way, I felt like I was betraying that movement. And those ideas. And particularly, he said, in the end, we'll remember not the words of our enemies, but the silence of our friends. Yes. And when I think of that quote, I think about a bunch of white people that are in a room or around a fire or wherever we are, and someone says something and I do nothing. That's what I think about when I think about that quote. And so I don't have any white friends anymore. I'm joking, but I mean,
rid of them all. Where did they go?
I've spoken up enough times. I don't get invited to the white barbecue. No, I do. I was with 17 of my white high school friends this summer. I'm known as the guy who kind of does that. I always have been. I'm a loudmouth. I'm a comic, whatever. But there's so much to that. The silence of our friends. Like, how can I be Joy's friend? Or some gay person's friend or whatever, or trans person, if someone's doing something and saying something and I do nothing or say nothing, the silence is what you remember, I feel.
I agree. And I feel this way about, and I gently disagree with some of my, Black friends who are like, F them Hispanics. They're getting thrown, out of the country and put in detention because their people voted for Trump. And I always say, yeah, but that person on the ground didn't, because they're undocumented and they can't vote, number one. And number two, even if, let's say they had, I know exactly what that kind of cruelty looks like in our own history. And so me, just in my platform, I feel like I need to use my platform to say something about that, whether or not however I feel about the way that Latino people voted. First, I want to understand why they did it. And I, having lived in Florida for 14 years, I kind of do. And you have to understand the amount of disinformation that is being pumped in through in-language media to Asian Americans and Latinos who listen to in-language media. So it's like, I think I'm with you. I think that we just as human beings, right, our short time on this earth is supposed to be in service of other people. And so I think we all have that responsibility. It's not just white people. It's all of us. We have this responsibility. I saw with a lot of white women who are saying we got to get our women together. White women have only been free since the 70s. And before that, they couldn't even get a bank account. And yet they're on this pedestal where they have always been complicit in this, in cheering on and allowing the suffering of Black women and Black people, because the pedestal is more important than the righteousness, right? They've got to get that together. So I think each of us in our communities, we owe the universe more. And we should do anything that we can to stand up for the least of these. I mean, I'm still a Christian. I know that a lot of the people on the right don't think that I can possibly be a Christian, but I am. And I believe that the red letters of Jesus say that is what we are called to do.
Well, I mean, when it comes to Black folks and Hispanic folks, the Hispanic folks are taking Black jobs. So that's a little bit different.
Well, you know what's so wild about that? Trump, it was a great tell when he said that, because who are they taking away, right? Field workers, people who do very low paid work. And Trump, because he is an old dude, he thinks low paid jobs are supposed to be Blacks. That's supposed to be a Black gardener. That's supposed to be a Black in the field. Why are they out? Why are they being Obama? They're not supposed to be Obama. They're supposed to be in the fields. I think he really feels like Obama should be in the fields. He just is an old cooter who does not understand that the modern world is happening.
I heard a bunch of Black folks were joking about this at one of our hangouts recently, where someone's like, we are never going back to the fields. Like, do you
ever?
Those jobs, we're never doing those jobs again. It's a generalization, obviously, but Black folks, picking fruit and stuff is not a thing, no matter what. You put me in jail.
First of all, y'all didn't give us reparations for the first one. I can't say us because my people are foreign, but Blacks who were here picking them fruits and everything, they did that for 400 years and they didn't get reparations for it. Y'all need to pay them their reparations before you even ask them. And number two, no, Blacks are not doing it. So y'all, and here's the reality too, y'all need to pay them brown people more for doing it too. And the reason the whites won't do it, it was a great thing I was listening to the other day, and I have to find this and send it to you, Pete, because I think you would love it. There was an experiment apparently that was done in the 1960s, I think, in California, where they tried to encourage young white athletes, high school athletes, to go and pick fruit, to go in the farms, because they wanted to get rid of the the brown workers. And so they're like, here's how we'll do it. We'll get rid of those workers and we'll get these young white kids to do it. These young boys were lasting like half an hour before that sun hit them. And they went,
It's very hard for us to be out in the sun doing work.
They couldn't do it.
Yeah, you're first generation Nigerian, is that right? Nigerian American.
Congo, the Democratic is in scare quotes. And my mother was from what was British Guyana when she was growing up, but it was just Guyana. Sorry. And then her enslaved background is from Ghana. So I am 100% unmixed African.
I don't know why I thought that. Okay, so the other thing you said is, white folks not wanting, I think you're talking about white women in general, like not wanting to give up their pedestal. I just feel like we're so comfortable, third generation, fourth generation American whites especially. Like all my white friends are really, they have good lives, health insurance and jobs and good public schools, maybe even private schools. And like, I'm anti-fascist, I'm anti-Trump, but I'm not like, my life is pretty good. Like, I don't want to rock the boat. I don't know what to say. So it's not just giving up. It's like, I feel like it's not always like giving up power. It's an idea that, and some people say, why aren't people in the streets? Because life is pretty good for most people still.
Right. And I think that I agree with you. I think that the thing that America has given to white folks at the expense of Black literally has been this sort of idyllic life. And there is a deep reluctance to make that life less comfortable. And I think one of the reasons that you see people freaking out about the border, right? People who don't live near the border, who are far from the border. But to them, what the border really means is that when they go in CVS, there are going to be a bunch of people speaking Spanish in there. When what the border means to them is when they call customer service, it's going to say press 1 for Spanish, press 2 for English. And the idea of any discomfort whatsoever, of having to deal with other people, of just the possibility, this is why I think they get mad about affirmative action. The idea that their kid would apply to Harvard and not get in. They can't process the idea that maybe their kid wasn't qualified. It's got to be that these Blacks are taking it. If they didn't get a job or a promotion they wanted, because the life has been so cushy and has been so relatively easy, even for, white folks that are relatively poor. I mean, I was kind of amazed watching that tiger show about the guy who had the tigers. These are poor people who live on 100 acres of land. So even if you don't have any money, you live on a trailer, your trailer is on like 50 acres, So I think white Americans feel like they would be having to pounds and the Blacks got anything, and that they see it as a zero-sum game, that if Joy gets something, it's taking it from Jane. It's not that I just got something and deserve it, it's that I'm taking it from them. So I think there has to be some way, and I don't know who can do that, to influence your average white person who just votes for Trump because they're like, I'm a Republican, I'm getting tax cuts, to understand that you're also getting fascism and that it will impact them eventually.
Don't you think, though, I mean, I think all that's true about language and everything else and jobs and so on, but isn't there an accelerant? Like, isn't it so much worse when the person with the biggest platform, the president of the United States, whether it's on a campaign or in office, says they're all rapists, they're all murderers? Like, I just was bothered that I had to hear their language, and me particularly, I can't stand Hispanic music, so I don't want to hear that. I had to live in a Hispanic neighborhood for a while, and that was enough. Like, does anyone have a Dave Matthews album on here? But that was annoying to me, but I wasn't outraged by it. But now,
like salsa merengue, what's wrong with you?
No, but I am outraged by murderers and rapists, and I'm terrified of them. And what's interesting, it's almost like some people are waking up to the fact that they're not removing murders and rapists, because there's very few murders and rapists. They're mostly Americans, citizens. They're removing the people that work on your lawn. And so a lot of people are like, I thought they were just going to get rid of the criminals. But what I'm saying is, like, Trump and the right-wing media have really made Americans who are already, predisposed to these things think that there's so many violent, terrible people, when in fact that 99% of them, the vast majority of them, are here to work, just like the rest of us. Oh no,
100%. And they almost overplayed their hand, right? Fox and right-wing media have played it up so much that there are millions and millions and millions, 10 million criminals and rapists going around the street. Even though, by the way, again, the guy in the White House was civilly adjudicated to have sexually abused E.G. Carroll and has 26 other accusers. But just saying, that they don't have a real problem with sexual abuse, etc., because Trump is one. But anywho, but then they've overplayed their hand to the point now that people expect that whenever they see that person being thrown on the ground, that the next thing the newscaster is going to say is that that person is a triple murderer. But then when it turns out the only triple murderer so far that has been any way implicated in Donald Trump's ICE menagerie has been the triple murderer he brought back from Venezuela.
Oh, right.
Who killed 3 people in Spain. He then released that man free to walk free in Texas. That's the only triple murderer that we've seen involved. And Trump is the one who brought him here.
That story went so undercovered, and people should look it up if they haven't heard about it. And you would, that would be the perfect story if a Democrat did it for Sean Hannity to boost. Let me switch to media and ask you about that. I've always believed, and I don't think anybody's going to push me off this opinion, that the reason we're so divided is because right-wing media, period. And right-wing media has influenced elections and politicians and made Trump, and Trump made them. But I mean, how much do you think, before Rush and before the fairness doctrine ended and before all the independent media where now you can say anything, the masks are all off, the hoods are on, but still before all of this, the most recent iteration of it, Hannity, working at Sirius. I shared an office with that dude, Andrew Wilkow. Dude is the worst person. The shit he said all the time was crazy pants. And I confronted him he's super anti-gay. But how much of where we're at now do you apportion to the power of right-wing media and the fact that, frankly, they will always be better than the rest of media at doing what they do, because most audiences, progressive media or middle of the road corporate media, just wouldn't buy the shit they're saying. Barack Obama wasn't born here and whatever shit they're saying. So talk to me a little bit about right-wing media and how often you actually see these people at these highfalutin events that you attend.
Mm-hmm. It's interesting. Yes, I agree. Prince Harry said in his book, which is actually really good, that he wrote about his life, that the most evil person who's ever lived is Rupert Murdoch. And I am not one who's ever lived, but in the modern era is Rupert Murdoch. And I think he's right. I think that what between, and you name them, Rush Limbaugh kind of perfected, Clarence Thomas said in that interview that was in Frontline that the person who red pilled him was Rush Limbaugh, and I think that right-wing media has had a grip on white America for 70 years, 60 years, 50 years or whatever. And it has groomed people to be fearful of non-white people, to be angry at women for getting out of the kitchen, to be enraged about the border, which, and overly paranoid about white replacement and things like that.
Hate government and anything with the word public in it.
Even though they're mostly on government, subsidies, they're either on Medicare, Medicaid, Social Security. A lot of these audiences, the Fox audience is all on Social Security, Medicaid, and Medicare. And even though they get, business grants from the government, they're so dependent on the government, but they believe that their rugged individualism is what's making them successful. They believe that they're getting no help at all, but then they find out that when, the money that they were getting for their farm from USAID gets cut off, then they go, wait a minute, hold on a second. Like, who you're taking my, I earned that, but yeah. Okay. So it is, I believe, right in the city is evil. And the attempts on the other side have been very weak. MSNBC, because I worked there, it did not. People think it set itself up to be the left-wing Fox. It never did. I've worked there since 2011, okay? And I promise you, it's not the left-wing Fox. And for 2 reasons. Number one, the entire day side is just like CNN. It's just straight ahead news. It is not ideological. And they would actually I had a day side show, and I got in trouble for doing things they thought were too ideological, because they were like, this is daytime. You're supposed to be just straight ahead news. At night, it is their editorial position that it is liberal. It is Rachel Maddow and is very liberal. And now that's moved up to 4 p.m., right? It's Nicole Walls, who's not liberal, by the way. She's just a sane, normal Republican. So you're sort of sane, normal Republican all the way to liberal. I don't think Ari Melber is particularly liberal. It just gets more and more liberal as you get later down the thing. And then, Stephanie Ruhle, she's a finance lady, but she's just normal insane, right? So I don't see it as and the second reason is you're not allowed to lie. Like, we couldn't get on there and just say,
because you could be sued. Yeah.
Well, not only that, we had standards and practices department. We'd be dragged into a standards and practices and legal meeting. We'd be fired. You can't lie. So Fox, they can say whatever they want. And the only time they've been busted for lying is because they got sued by Smartmatic and the other company, what is it called? The one who had the voting machine.
And then Dominion, yeah. Yeah, all really good points about right-wing media, for sure. And I just have always believed that. I mean, I think the only progressive media that's really how I kind of got into it out of comedy was working for Jon Stewart and Stephen Colbert. I mean, like, comedians have been able to do better much. I think John Oliver does one of the most journalistically important shows in definitely. I mean, every week I worked on that show as well. So I think, but that's the only thing that can kind of compete with your right-wing media, which is there to divide and conquer and scare the shit out of you. And explain this to me. I've had these arguments. I live in like the safest community. I live in Rockland County in Clarkstown, New York, outside the city. And it's considered like one of the safest communities. But people here are terrified of crime. And I said to them, I'm like, where? You don't know anybody who knows anybody who has even been a victim of a violent crime in this town.
Right.
I mean, the crimes are, it's the best job in the town is cop. It's the best job. They don't do anything. There's no crime. There's hardly any crime here. What are you scared of? I mean, my daughter's friends' parents would never let their daughters go into New York City because of all the crime. And I would always be like, there's kids that live in the city. People feel like there's crime. They just feel like it when there isn't. I think the reason is because they're told that there is, but they don't believe their own experience. It's the idea like that American parents, especially white folks, think that their kids are being kidnapped all over, left and right, and sexually trafficked. No, never happens. You don't know anybody. And by the way, no one's taking your kid. Fucking look at that kid. No one wants him. I'm just saying, if I have a choice, it's not yours. Why do people feel that way if it's not simply media telling them that to get ratings and to get elected?
No, 100%. And by the way, if you're worried about your kid being trafficked, they're much more likely to be abused by their pastor or their priest than by a stranger. Yeah. If a woman is killed, it's much more likely by her partner, her spouse. Much more likely. I lived in Pembroke Pines, Florida, also one of the safest places. We deliberately chose it because of good schools for our kids. Yep. There was no crime there. Where whenever you saw the cops, they were and I say this literally, eating donuts because they were hanging out at this local little deli by us. And we would go by there in the morning to get coffee. And there were always cops in there sitting there chilling. They had nothing to do. And the crimes generally were domestic. The crimes they generally had to deal with was domestic abuse, somebody beating or killing their spouse. That was mostly the crimes. But and we were just in LA. I was in LA right as Trump was invading LA with the military. We drove all over that town. We were going there. I was there for the BET Awards. The BET Awards were going on. People were brunching. It was totally calm. Yet if you watched Fox, they made it sound like LA is this hellscape, that it's Mad Max level hell, and that Trump had to get in there. And then you still see people reinforcing that on X Twitter, on social media. It's an ecosystem in which the lie gets expanded on the same page, and they're all doing it together. And they've done this and groomed people this way forever. They want the people in Rockland County to be a fear of crime. And I'll give you the best example of it. The term black on black crime. It is other than the term white, it is the most powerful lie ever told. And it's so powerful because it says to white people that black people who it was legal to kill. I'm going to say it again. It was perfectly legal for any white person to kill any black person up until the 1960s. And the only time it became illegal is in the late 1960s when both women and blacks were allowed on juries in the South, because before that they were not. No women, no blacks on the juries. So if you killed a black person, if you lynched them, normally the sheriff was with you when you did it. You would be cheered by your peers. The people who killed Emmett Till, that 14-year-old child, walked away, no consequences. And they knew it. They knew they would because it was legal for white people to kill black people. So white on black crime is literally the entire history of this country, except for the last 60 years. It's always been white, because never, other than Nat Turner, Black people didn't kill white people because they knew if you even bumped into a white person on the street or accidentally brushed against them on an elevator, you'd get lynched. So the crime went only one way. And now you come to the modern era. The people who are the highest victims of crime are poor people, whether they're white or Black. People kill people or hurt people or rob people. They almost always, 9 out of 10 times, victimize people of their own race, because race is now such a powerful construct, and people also live in monoracial communities. So Black on Black crime is just crime, because most Black people who are victimized in a crime are victimized by somebody in their own community, meaning another Black person. And most white people who are victimized by a crime are also victimized by their own people. So white on white crime is also just crime, but no one ever talks about white on white crime. But the vast majority, numerical majority of criminals in the country are white, and they're mostly victimizing white people. That's not me saying that. That's the FBI data. So this idea of creating this idea that but what white people are, what is implied by the right-wing media is that when Black people are committing crimes, they're doing them against white people. And that's just statistically bullshit.
Absolutely. Very well said. All right, I have a million more questions for you, but I think I'm out of time. But I'm going to do a lightning round of fun.
Okay.
You mentioned white crime. What is a recipe that white folks make that you think is a white crime? A typical white dish that you find criminal?
Potato salad with raisins. Criminal. It's got everything wrong. Everything's wrong with it. First of all, I hate mayonnaise. You got mayonnaise, potatoes, and raisins in the same bowl. Criminal.
If mayonnaise were black, would you still hate it? Oh, she broke up on that one. I lost her.
Yes, I would. I would hate mayonnaise regardless of its color.
There's a long, awkward pause because the internet is super awkward.
I don't know why the internet's playing with me today, but yes, I detest mayonnaise in all its forms.
Who is someone that you really admire in media and then in politics?
Oh, 2 different people?
Yep.
Okay. I would say...
Is there anybody that you watch or listen to or read on a regular basis because you really like what they're doing?
I mean, I like a lot of different people. I would say if I had to
You're
pick
so
one.
well known and influential. You can't say, you don't want to not say somebody,
right? Because I don't want to say one person and then exclude all the other people, and then people get mad at me.
I don't want to get you in trouble. Okay, name a politician then that you think is doing good work right now.
Oh, Mamdani. I'm obsessed. I think Mamdani, who I do believe is going to be the next mayor in New York. I think he has it exactly right. I think that he understands politics in a really granular way because he understands what people want and what people need. And I really admire the campaign that he's running. The second person I would definitely put in there in this moment, I know not everyone loves him, but I actually think he's doing it exactly right, is Gavin Newsom. I think he has it. I think he has not everything. I think some of the things he's doing are a little trying to touch too much the right-wing third rail to try to get attention. But
She'll be back.
Oh, yeah. Sorry, I'm back.
Okay, those are good answers. Finally, you are very well known, arguably famous now. I feel like you have a lot of famous friends. Name drop somebody that you have become friends with, because I feel like you're in pictures with and vacationing with and friendly with a lot of well-known celebrity types that aren't necessarily even in media, that are more in entertainment. Who's your is there an actress that you're good friends with?
There are. I would say that you want to just name up. So I would name drop probably who wouldn't get mad at me for throwing their name out there. I become very good friends with Erica Alexander, who I absolutely love. I think she's a brilliant actress. I think she's fun. And she's one of those people. And the reason I'll name drop her is this is one of those cases where I grew up, she was my friend in my head. I thought of her as my pal, and now she actually is my pal. And that's one of the cool things about this job is that you can meet people who you admire and who you just, you think you'll never actually be their friend. And then you actually meet them and you're their friend. And that is a very cool thing. It's a cool aspect of the job. And I absolutely love her.
How do you deal with adversity? I never will ever forget a conversation you and I had in the lobby of SiriusXM. And I said, I'm always so worried about losing my gig here. And then of course I did not long after, but I asked you about, do you worry about that? And you just looked at me. You're like, what? No, I've been poor.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, and then I left. But But I mean, like, how do you deal with, and I'm thinking about like financial stuff, with just general adversity and depression, anxiety? Like, do you have any kind of practice, teacher, a thing that you do? Because we've all watched you go through everything that you've gone through. And I've often wondered, about how you deal with that. We know you're a human.
Yeah. And I actually am not good at it. I'll be honest. I will be very, transparent and say that I'm terrible at dealing with adversity and depression and anxiety. I have all the things. I have ADHD, anxiety, and I go through all the things. But it's like, it's one of those things where I think it's a thing that happens when your mother names you Joy, right? My presentation is always so joyful because it kind of comes with the name, right? But a lot of times that is masking a lot of anxiety. And this, this whole thing this year has been incredibly anxious making for me, just like everyone else, not just because of what happened to me personally, but I'm not enjoying watching our empire fall. Right. I feel something quite tragic. My parents came here on purpose, and I feel like I'm watching a thing my mother believed in be destroyed. And she's not here to see it, thank God. I think she's turning over in her grave watching this country become this. And because she always kind of feared it would become this, and expressed a lot of concern, even in the 80s, that there's something wrong with this thing that she bought into. And I hate seeing it go this way. I'm sorry that America is becoming a failed former empire and gave in to Trump. That the thing that took us down was this arrogant fool of a man. This man who was not worthy to be president the first time, and now he's in his full form. And I'm sorry that America got tricked into this again, and that it's going to probably collapse because of it.
I guess I add one more question. You've got this new independent media venture. Substack and YouTube, I think, are both the best places to go find Joy, watch and read and follow. Who you've interviewed almost everybody I bet you've ever wanted to interview. You had great access and cable, and as a result of your success in network, mine too. Like, I usually pretty good access still to even do my own thing. I know I've heard you say, you haven't had any trouble booking anybody, which is awesome. You have a huge platform now as well, maybe even bigger in many ways. But who is somebody that you have an interview that you'd like to, or even somebody that you have that you'd like to get back on?
Yeah, you know what? It's so interesting. I have never interviewed Barack Obama or Michelle. That was the one we never could land. And he did not like cable news, and he would not come on MSNBC. I would love to interview both Obamas. I've interviewed her before, but I really want to interview Kamala Harris. She's definitely on the list. So call me, Kamala. I want to interview her again, because I think she would have really interesting insights into what's happening right now. But then there are a bunch of comedians, we started with a comedian, and we want to, Amber Ruffin, who I love. And we want Dave Chappelle, somebody I would love to talk to. Bill Burr, one of my favorite comedians. I would love to talk to Bill. I would love to talk to Eddie Murphy. Look, you're one of my favorite comedians, and I'm talking to you. So I think you should call all your comedian friends and tell them to return my calls.
I will text Bill Burr right now. But I did your show, and it was awesome, and I love you, and I look up to you, and I care so much about you, and you have always been really good to me since we met a billion years ago. And I am so grateful to have you here, and everybody for watching. Go support Joy if you're not already. She's continuing to do amazing work, arguably better work. She's completely unrestrained, and I think you're doing your best. And I think whatever you're doing now is better than what you've done before, and that'll continue to be the case. So thank you very much. Keep up the good work. I love you, and I'm if there's anything I could ever do, I mean, you're such a big deal. What can I do? Maybe I can like fix a cupboard or something. I don't know.
I'm going to hang up from this pod and call Christina Greer. How about that? I'll hook it up.
There's 3 strikes against me. Yeah. We'll tell you what they are.
But you have to get the moisturizer. Like, you have to do it. The shea butter. I'll send you the shea butter. I will gift it to you.
A black woman gave me moisturizer for black people, and I feel like I can't use it because it's cultural appropriation. It's got like a black woman's face on it. I'm like, I don't know. I feel
so does the one I was going to send you, so maybe I won't, because it's literally got a black woman's face.
I should try. I'm changing a lot of things, so maybe I'll take the dive into moisturizing.
Embrace the horror.
Thank you
Embrace
so
the
much,
change.
Joy.
I appreciate you, my friend.
Bye.
Love you, friend.
Love you
Bye-bye.
too. And end.
Well, there you go, everybody. Hopefully those internet blips were not too distracting for you, but let me know. And I hope Joy Reid comes back. I hope that you will subscribe to her stuff on Substack and YouTube. I hope you'll let her know you heard her here today on the show, because that always matters a lot. And I hope to see you at tonight's Hangout. I forgot to mention that at the top. Hang out with me tonight at 8 p.m. as we do Mondays and Thursdays at 8 p.m. I'm looking forward to seeing you and talking about my weekend, hearing about yours and everything else. Thank you so much for listening and for supporting. Patreon.com/PeteDominic is the place to go. And all of you listened all the way to the end. You're called bumblebees. You're wonderful. I love you. And I'll talk to you tomorrow. John Carroll taking us out right now.